Like most of the people in this theater, when I was a kid, I loved Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. Once, however, my mother saw a photograph of a woman with an axe in her head. A pile of issues were thrown out, and Famous Monsters of Filmland was banned from the house. All was not lost, though, because my cousin Scott had a subscription, and I could go and read them at his house. The same way the original King Kong lit a flame in the young Ray Harryhausen in 1933, the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad was the young John Landis' career epiphany in 1958. When I was 12 years old, I wrote a fan letter to Harryhausen, and I mailed it care of Forrest J. Ackerman at Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, Horrorwood, California. Corey actually got the letter and forwarded it on to London to Ray Harryhausen. And Ray sent me an autographed 8x10 glossy of him animating the dragon from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which is still framed and proudly displayed on the wall of my library at home. In 1971, I wrote and directed my first feature film, the appropriately titled Schlock. This $60,000 effort is most notable for two things. It was my first collaboration with the young makeup artist, Rick Baker. And it was the reason I met Forrest J. Ackerman, as they like to say, in the flesh. Schlock's cast and crew screening was held at the Cary Grant Theater at MGM Studios in Culver City. Exactly how Forrest got there, I don't know. But after the screening, he introduced himself to me in the parking lot in front of the Thalberg building. He also introduced the fellow he came with, Ed Wood. Mr. Wood was absolutely astonished and astounded that I knew who he was and of the movies he had made. He was a sad, shabby guy whose breath reeked of alcohol. But Mr. Ackerman was more than gracious. He invited Rick Baker and me to the Acker Mansion, and he kept his promise of publishing photos and an article on Schlock in his magazine, Famous Monsters, and this was a year before we even got a distributor. The Acker Mansion was then on Olympic Boulevard near Los Angeles, walking distance to the Ship's Coffee Shop, another Los Angeles landmark no longer with us. Others today, and lots of others today, will speak of Forrest's legendary accomplishments, his magazines, his influence on generations of writers and filmmakers, his extraordinary generosity, his ridiculous number of times he saw Fritz Lang's Metropolis, his Al Jolson imitation, his mad crush on Melina Dietrich, his time at nudist colonies, his knowledge of Esperanto, his wide circle of friends, clients, enemies, admirers, acolytes, and parasites. For me, Forrest was a loyal and staunch friend, and of course, a very fine actor in many of my films. Patient and loving wife, Wendy, liked to recall the night that this is true. Wendy liked to recall the night that one of Forrest's pulp author clients, L. Ron Hubbard, had them and a few others over to his apartment to pitch a new religion he invented called Scientology. Hubbard promised that it would make everyone there very rich, and Forrest could not get out of there fast enough. Appreciated her husband's integrity, but as she told me, I always secretly regretted not getting in on the ground floor. The Acker Mansion duplex on Olympic moved to the Acker Mansion big house in Horrorwood, California. That big house that used to belong to actor John Hall with the orange Cadillac parked in front. Finally, it moved to the classic small Hollywood bungalow where he held court in the Acker mini mansion where he ended his days. All places I remember with great affection. All places he opened to one and all for anyone to visit his treasures. The motion picture industry, the movie business, has always treated the ephemera of filmmaking as industrial waste. It is only because of fringe enthusiasts like Forrest J. Ackerman, Bob Burns, Henri Langlois, that many of the iconic props, costumes, and manuscripts pertaining to film production exist at all. This is yet another way Forrest has blessed us. My daughter Rachel still has the beautiful antique porcelain doll that Forrest gave her as a child after Wendy passed away. It was a prized possession of Wendy's and is beautifully dressed carries a purse. Rachel immediately named the doll Wendy and discovered that Forrest had put a silver dollar in that purse. And when my then 10-year-old son Max, who's now my 23-year-old son Max, told Forrest he wanted to read some science fiction, Forrest sent over a big cardboard box full of Robert Heinlein and Ray Bradbury paperbacks. I'm proud to tell you that Max is now making his living as a writer. And every year, like clockwork, Forrest would call my wife Deborah to wish her a happy Mother's Day.
Aww.
Forrest's embrace of Esperanto is typical of the true futurist and idealistic man he was. Kevin Burns referred to him as a utopian. He really was a utopian. He was a man without prejudice. And although he was extremely ill, he told me he could not die until he could vote for Obama for president. And he did. Forrest Ackerman was a unique person whose generosity touched all of us. We are all better for having I'll say this better. We are all better for having had Forrest in our lives. I know I am. Thank you.
Yeah.